This episode of Ladder Legacy is proudly sponsored by the Bedford Group Insurance, helping families and businesses protect what matters most. Whether it's coverage for your home, your family, your team, or your future, Bedford's got your back with the best reliable insurance solutions in Florida. Visit our website to learn more, bedfordinsurance.com. And now on to your episode.
Welcome to the show. Today we are joined by someone whose journey is defined by vision, leadership, and unwavering commitment to the people around him. Steven Levin is a long-term serial entrepreneur and owner of Mind Games, whose ventures have continuously pushed boundaries, created bigger opportunities, especially in the Palm Beach County area, expanding horizons, stepping confidently into every new challenge that comes his way. He's also running as candidate for Village Council Seat number 3. He describes himself as a Sherpa-style leader, guiding others with clarity and support. I'm really excited to have him on today as we dive into his story. Steven, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Rudy. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You are a man who is doing a lot of things. So let's get started with Mind Games. Tell me a little bit about it.
So Mind Games is an after-school enrichment company. We work with kids K through 5 elementary schools. We are in most elementary schools in Palm Beach County. Currently, we're expanding into Broward County, Orange County, Orlando. We've just started franchising, offering franchises. And this started as sauce on side. My wife was looking for something to do, didn't want to go back to the classroom. She was a classroom teacher, master's degree in education. And I said, I can help with that. Sure. So she really pioneered the concept. Look what we turned it into today. And it takes a lot of leadership. I'm happy to assist as an operational capacity, hiring, training, spreading the Mind Games concept into more schools. If we have an absent teacher, I fill in, crawl down on the floor, and we play games. It's all STEM-based lesson plans around screen-free gameplay. So it might be dice games or board games, puzzle games, but it gets back to the basics of learning through play, working together with other people, staying away from the screens. Kids get enough of that right now. 30-second elevator story.
I love it. So I guess let's break that down. So are you only in Palm Beach County, or you said you're looking at franchising? You are franchising now?
Yeah, so we're about 90% done with creating our franchise, our operations manual, the franchise literature, the links on the website. Right now, we're in 3 counties: Palm Beach County Public Schools, Broward County Public Schools, and Orange County Public Schools. In addition to the public schools in Palm Beach County, for example, we've got a handful of privates, Catholics. We do some community centers. Started as after-school enrichment, and today we offer in-school field trips, summer camps. We're at some of the community centers, like I say. So if there's a spot where we can find kids, we're going to see if we can find a program and fit it through them. I like to find opportunities and create synergies there. Now, I've always been a serial entrepreneur, so I ended one business, which was a multi-unit franchise called DirectBuy. And as I was ending DirectBuy, we were looking to do something additional. Jenny actually started Mind Games because she was taking our elementary age daughter to cheerleading, which was pretty much the only after school enrichment that was offered at the time. And while she was counting the number of kids in cheerleading class and writing a check to the cheerleading teacher for 2nd grade cheerleading, you can imagine it's cute, but I don't know how much life skills they get out of it. But she was starting to count the kids and said, there's got to be something I can do so that I can take a check. And I said, well, I don't know, let's think about that for a minute. And somebody suggested, why don't you play games? You put your educational background to it and take some of Steven's business experience and operational knowledge and put all that together and see what you come up with. So we presented a business plan to the then principal at Bings Forest Elementary School here in Wellington, Florida. And she said, it's great. I think you should introduce it at Panther Run Elementary also. So the first session was one session in each of 2 schools. At that time, we were running 4 8-week sessions in a calendar year, something aligned with the school quarters. And for the second session, with so much demand that we ran 2 sessions in each of the 2 schools. And it's really just taken off like a rocket ship ever since. The demand is incredible. The parents love it. The kids love it. The schools love it. They tell us that we're the kind of program that communicates well, that treats after school enrichment like a business, which is the only way I know how to approach it. Jenny's thorough in her communication. We cross all our I's, we dot all our T's. If we print a flyer, we want to make sure the flyer has the right content and that the website registration capability is ready to accept it at the same time. Um, we message our existing customer base, which is the parents of the kids, and we say, hey, we're going to start enrolling the next session at this time. And if you want to ensure you get your spot, sign up early. Create some urgency, but in truth, many of the classes fill up. We take wait lists. Some of the wait lists do convert if a kid moves to a different school or for whatever reason wants to take piano or soccer or who knows what. But we're in all the schools right now. I think pretty much all the schools where we want to be.
Wow, that's amazing. So you started this with your wife, your partner, right? Then
That's right.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
we have a habit of doing business together. It's great fun.
And that's exactly what I was about to ask. A lot of people on here are probably watching and going, "Oh my gosh, you never know what you're going to get." Right? Obviously, we love our
Hmm.
significant others, but it could be easy or could be not. Right? But it sounds like you guys have made something of it, which is first of all an amazing thing to do, to have a marriage and do business together, because that, like you said, doesn't typically mix. But how did you guys end up actually deciding, hey, let's work on this together? Was that a her thing, a you thing? I'm sure. Well, what did the boss say, I should say?
Yeah, the boss said, I got it until I don't got it. And can you help out with this
Of course.
or that? So I started off managing some of the insurance capabilities.
Hmm.
As we got a little bit bigger, um, operational capacities, payroll processing, new employee onboarding, creating something of an operations manual, something of a training system, making sure that the materials that we give to our instructors were consistent. That comes from my background in sales, management, training, development, operations, business growth. Those kinds of things I've done from one to the next to the next. So whether it was mind games, or I had an indoor playground and cafe for a while called Cool Beans. We were offering franchises there as well. So putting together a franchise program is tough, laborious, litigious, and it takes a long time. But once you get it cooking, one franchise will help you get a second. A second will help you get a fourth. Four will get you six or so. And then hopefully you start to build some critical mass where other people's efforts with proper leadership and guidance can help you get to where you want to go. So at some point along the way, I took more of a role. Today, I'm really vice president of franchise development. I'm really growing the business and moving the needle in areas outside of Palm Beach County.
Got it. So you were really just you just jumped into this with your background and experience and just general operations, and decided to help make this thing, supercharge this thing. And that's interesting. You've had more than one franchise. I mean, thank you. You're helping me unpack so much information. I love it. Which is great, because I'm trying to figure out which way I'd like to go now.
I've been on both sides of franchising with and I've been in some private business as well. But DirectBuy, I was a multi-unit franchisee. We started with a partner and one, branched out with my wife and opened a second franchise location. Divested my shares of the first from my partner. And when the opportunity came to own a location, a franchise territory in our own backyard, suddenly I found myself traveling less. And then the franchisor leaned on me and they said, hey, you know what? You're doing this great. Can you model this for other folks? Can you take more of a regional capability? So the franchisor asked me to help out on a bigger way, in a bigger way, on a greater capacity, as a Southeast regional franchise advocate. We had a franchise business council representing various different franchisees to the franchisor. That was great. With the first role that moved me to South Florida was as director of franchising for a company called mycity.com. Unfortunately, they were a little late to the .com industry, and a little late to market, a little late with product. That was the way .coms worked at the time, but we were selling product that we hadn't quite developed yet. That was a bad formula.
I can imagine it definitely would be. But it sounds like you've been in
Mm.
the franchising world for quite a long period of time. So what What got you into the franchising world then? Because I mean, it sounds like Mind Games is, a great opportunity, something you guys have helped build together and make this wonderful thing. But it's just one of the many splendid things that you've been a part of, and that's a whole rabbit hole. But how did you get into franchising? Because I've heard, from various people, we'll just say, that we know in Palm Beach County about franchising, some bigger companies and some bigger families I've talked about that we both know. And, they all say, don't do it, right? That it's very difficult, that it's very cumbersome. Like you said, it's very litigious. How did you get into it, and why did you stay in it?
So initially, the thing that appealed to me as being a franchisee, owning a copy of a model and driving the business and running the business, the thing that appealed to me about it was, here's an instruction manual, here's the training, here's all the steps, follow these steps and you'll get what I got. Do what I did and you'll get what I got has been a mantra that I've applied successfully many, many times over, whether I'm reading personal development books or listening to, used to be tapes, whatever they are now, streams, listening to others' material. But do what I did and you'll get what I got has been a solid mantra. Now, if I can do what you did better or find ways to tweak it or improve it, enhance it, then I'll get what you got faster, or maybe I'll find a shortcut along the way. And there's no shortcut for hard work. And for commitment and for dedication and for application of effort, long hours, all these things that go into any kind of business. But as a franchisee, ideally, you get a proven model that with consistent effort, you can reproduce expected results. So we did that with DirectBuy. And then I created one with Cool Beans, and now I'm creating one with Mind Games.
That's awesome. And then I can imagine now before getting into being the franchisor, you were a franchisee. What was the first franchise that you actually jumped into?
The first one was a company called MyCity.com.
My City? Okay.
It was based, at the time I met it, I was in Orlando working in a sales organization. And I got recruited to come to work for a .com in sunny South Florida. They said, hey, come down to Miami Beach. Great. So I said, let's take a look at that. And it was on Alton Road in a Hispanic studio TV. I don't remember exactly what it was. Very shortly thereafter, we were growing leaps and bounds because the development team, the software editors, everything we were doing, the concept was micro local websites. And what we were selling was a territory where you could be the territory manager and create onboarding, local advertising, help create templated websites for any kind of business. It was early in the .com industry. This was right at January of 2000, right after Y2K didn't happen.
So you were leaving the Great North to huddle to South Florida to hide from the robots that were going to take over.
That's it. Yeah, and we didn't reset our clocks, and the day the Earth stood still didn't happen.
Yep.
So we moved from Miami Beach. The business moved from Miami Beach to downtown Miami. We're on Flagler in an old bank building. If you could imagine anything you ever remember seeing about a .com, with loading up the refrigerator and a ping pong table and all the running remote control cars around the place so that you'd have a breather so that you could go back to work. That's what happened. So there was a vice president of franchise development, a fellow named Chuck Woolweaver. He was an old franchise guy. And he says, come with me, get under my wing. I'll teach you everything you need to know. And he was an excellent mentor. He was an excellent tutor. He was an excellent coach. And he loved to golf. We created franchise systems. We created reproducible trainings. We sold several units. I went on market visits and everything that you would do as the franchisor creating the business. Mr. Woolweaver was handling the paperwork side of it, the FDDs. At that time, it was called the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular. And today we have an FDD. So I understand the licensing in the various states and registration states and how all that goes. And when there was time to make a transition from one to the next, I said, let me try the other side of this. Let me try being a franchisee. And a buddy of mine says, I found this business where you buy everything at cost. And I said, okay, And he says, no, really. It's called DirectBuy. I said, all right. And he says, I'm going to open one. I said, okay. And you're going to be my partner. All right. And he says, we're going to Buffalo, New York. And I said, but we live in South Florida. And so there was a lot of travel initially.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
Buffalo's far.
But the franchisor was good at helping us design the space, at helping us to select the real estate. We picked a 10,000 square foot um, um, warehouse space that had the ability to be converted into an interior build out. The idea of direct buy was that you could buy from manufacturers' catalogs the same way the stores buy without paying the store's markup. So you are your own store's buyer, and you could buy home goods, case goods, carpeting, textiles, whatever you needed for in and around your home at cost, plus shipping and handling and so forth. And the savings were incredible.
Yeah.
But the manufacturer's library at that time had 750, 800, 900 different manufacturers, from plumbing fixtures and lighting fixtures and luggage and all kinds of different things. Fine men's shoes, um, and you bought the same way the stores bought. You paid what the stores pay, and our model was to sell memberships. So we got to a place where in Buffalo and Western New York, we were selling $5-6 million a month in memberships and turning $8-9 million a month in merchandise from which we didn't see a penny. And when the opportunity came to open a location in sunny South Florida, I said, yes, please, one more. And that location, we became the rising star. We earned all kinds of awards. If there's a rule book for how to win at whatever business it is, I just want to know what the formula is, and then I'll go apply that system with extraordinary effort and win. That's how I'm wired.
So it's interesting.
So
So it's interesting you say that. So what you've, and again, just picking up the last, 20 minutes we've been talking about it, what you've been applying is essentially the same exact thought process, right? Is adherence to a set of rules that will help you be successful. And if you see something wrong, fix it. It sounds so simple, but businesses don't do that for some reason. And, it's interesting you say that the franchise. Now, let me ask you this. So before you got into franchising, did you think it would be that, and when I say easy, obviously we know business isn't easy, but did you think it was that simple to help build upon a model that was already successful? Or did you think, hey, let me just go out on my own and not physically build a franchise? Let me just not have any of the information, like you said, getting into my city and all that. Like, did you think it would be better to not be in a franchise and just be that solopreneur who has no assistance, you're on your own? Or do you think, hey, no way, franchising is definitely the best thing for me to do, especially, we'll call it, for my first venture as an entrepreneur?
no, I think. Listen, I can't turn back or travel through time. Sherman set the Wayback Machine. I can't go find my 30-year ago, 20-year ago self and say, hey, this is the path we're going to take.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. Do this. Take a ladder to your legacy and find that those are the thanks very much. Find those steps along the way. So I would like to say that there's a clear-cut path to get from here to there, but there really isn't. I think you have to have an idea of what you want, and then find a way to get it. And for me, I fell into franchising. It wasn't where I started. I actually started in my professional career in Orlando in timeshare, but it's always been because I was hustling. I met the timeshare resort when I was peddling mobile phones out of the trunk of my car. So I created a program to market those. I said, listen, if you're at this time, this was early in the cell phone industry. We had flip phones and we had a Nokia, and the Nokia was cool because it had a little antenna. Everybody loved that.
And it never died, and you still can't kill them.
Oh my gosh, can't get rid of. No, but the idea was if you signed up for a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract, you'd get a free cell phone, and that was very innovative at the time when cell phones were cash out of pocket, hundreds of dollars.
I miss those days, by the way, because my $1,400 iPhone is not very nice to me.
Oops.
But
I put together a program, and I said, listen, if you're a firefighter, you get a free phone. If you're a teacher, you get a free phone. If you live at apartment complex XYZ, you get a free phone. And all it was an application of a consistent program of effort, finding something creative, making it work, making it apply, making my customer feel special. One day I showed up at the resort and I unloaded a trunk of cell phones in an hour. And the director of the resort was an old land sales guy from back in the day with the gator skin boots. And he said, "You need to get your license, son, and come and work for me." And I remember his name, and I remember the day clear as crystal. And he's still there 100 years later. And like to date myself, but the point is that it, you've got to find your style, and that hasn't changed for me. You said a moment ago that it was a lot of how I want to go about it, or um, application of effort. I forget your exact term, but
Yeah.
for me, or finding a program, finding a problem, I like to do that. But really, what I like to do is I think of business as a puzzle that needs to be solved. I think of the problems as a puzzle that need to be solved. I don't like to present a problem without at least a possible solution.
Mhm.
Might not be the one we land on, but most times in business development or training of staff or acquiring staff, I've set a standard. This is what I want to achieve. I've trained to that standard, and then I've maintained that standard. And if that standard isn't getting the result that we want, we may have to move and find a different standard, but we're going to set a standard. This is what we're going to do. We're going to write it down, drive every day towards it. And then we're going to train to that, and we're going to achieve that. Praise and redirect, get to where you need to go.
And it sounds so simple to say it because that's what we should be doing on a day to day. And I think that's what most business owners know they should be doing. It's the stuff that actually happens is the whole other we'll call it quagmire that ends up actually happening. But that's amazing. I mean, again, your career obviously you've done a lot of things: mobile phone sales, selling timeshares, which is again a crazy industry if anybody doesn't know about it. The timeshare industry is still 100% pumping. I know a lot of people hear the infomercials about get out of the timeshare, but I know three people personally who are selling for a couple of the bigger name people in the timeshare industry, and they do make great money at it. But that wasn't enough for you. You wanted more.
Well, when I met Timeshare, I didn't know how to sell anything. I just knew that I was hungry, and having a big enough have to is a strong motivator for a lot of folks. And when you start to solve your have to, then you start to solve your want to, and you find things that you want that you didn't want yesterday, and that becomes your new motivation. So Tony Robbins used to say outcome, purpose, action. Know what you want, why you want it with passion, and then lots of different ways you can get it, the actions. I'm a big purpose driven kind of guy. So the outcome is easy. You don't want to be successful. Everybody likes that as a pie in the sky kind of thing. What does success mean to you? Maybe it's more leisure. Maybe it's more less stress. Maybe it's more tanning time. I like to bike. So maybe it's more cycling. Everybody likes something different. But why you want it is the motivator or the driver for a lot of folks. And I've always tried to put things in four boxes. I talked about this last night with somebody, actually. Those things that are important and urgent, knock that out first. Um, when things are important but not urgent, that's the place you really want to live in. If things are neither important nor urgent, you're having a podcast, for example, and your cell phone rings, it's an interruption. It's a distraction. It's not important and it's not urgent. It's not the reason that you're doing whatever it was you want to do. So you have to find the thing that is really driving you towards that right box, focus on that, and live with passion to get it.
Now, what mistakes do you see? Because I'm sure, again, you look at today's youth, you see people, you look at them and say, wow, here are the things I wish people would have learned from, my missteps, right? Because I don't think there's any mistakes, right? Regrets are very slim to most entrepreneurs because we understand, or at least we all hope we understand most days, that not every day is going to be perfect, right? Being a business owner, there are going to be trials, there are going to be tribulations, literally and figuratively. You're going to have to go through them. But what can you do, or what can you say to people about how to shorten that curve? Like, what is the one thing, if you could go back and said, wow, I can give myself that magical time machine, the magic wand, whatever you'd like to call the magic thing or the implement, to help you shorten the learning curve? What would have it been?
Sure, Rudy. I think having a coach, having a mentor, or having a system, um, and then applying relentless effort makes a big difference. And for me, it wound up to be franchising. But that was after I got out of the timeshare industry. Timeshare was about buy it now, find a strong sense of urgency for somebody to buy something they weren't planning on in the first place.
Selling
So
air is what I've heard it's called.
selling air, selling time, selling a dream, selling vacation, selling a lifestyle.
Mhm.
It was never really, even though it was a deeded property that I was working at, and ultimately a chain that got very, very large. Um, I got to a place with such an incredible ego in sales that I wasn't leaving that day until I'd had an $18,000 deal. So some guys would take their turn and leave, or they'd sit in the lunchroom waiting, play cards. And that's never what I was about. I was always trying to put in good mental food. I was trying to create a mindset that whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, the mind of man can achieve. So you've got to find what are the steps to do that, and it's not by playing cards, it's not by going home early. So for me, it was commitment, it was dedication, it was, finding the guys that were doing better than me, what are they doing, and modeling what they were doing so that I could get there sooner. Ultimately the resort saw that, and I mean, I felt like there was this scale of confident, cocky, and arrogant, and by the time I left the sales line, I was Elvis.
Now,
um,
how important do you think that is for people? Because I think that's and I think we'll call it post-COVID world. I didn't grow up in sales first. I was in operations, and I went to sales. Some people go from sales to operations. How important do you feel that sales is to an entrepreneur's journey?
I think sales is everything, but I also think sales is communication
Mhm.
and relationship. So I think that with no quality communication, you're not able to properly convey an idea. And whether I'm communicating or building relationships with employees or customers, you always have a boss, even if you're the entrepreneur. Maybe your customer's the boss, maybe the government's your boss, um, maybe your mom's your boss. I don't know. Do it faster or move
Sure.
out. However you're going to find your boss, and what are the right ways to go. Um, that's the thing that pushes. So when I left the timeshare sales line, it was because I was offered a position training and developing other people to do what I did. And that's, I think, where I started to develop this idea of, if I do what the other guy did, I'll get what he got. So if I can turn that around, and if I can pull people along, if I can create this Sherpa mentality of good communication, reproducible systems, relationship building. I still have some of the people that I trained in timeshare. I hate to tell you how long ago. I get Christmas cards from, and it's great that, to me, that they feel like I impacted their life in such a way, um,
Positive way, by the way.
huge way,
Positive.
that they still want to communicate. And I still have text periodically with them, or Facebook messages, or whatever. But you lose touch with people over the years. And some people have maintained that communication, and I think that speaks to what they got from me.
Most definitely, and especially in a very, like we talked about, litigious timeshares. Some people call it can be car salesy, right? So to be in
Mhm.
a situation where you were in a sales position, to see that's amazing, and it goes to a testament to who your character is, and why you're in the position you are today, doing what you're doing today. But from a business standpoint, obviously there are great things you've done in business. There are things in business that you probably wish that you didn't do, taking opportunities, dealing with certain employees, all the fun stuff. When it comes to the most exciting thing, though, because let's talk about some fun stuff. What was the most exciting thing that you had done? Was it selling a company? Was it taking on a new opportunity? What was the thing that really got the juices flowing? Was it making that first, $20,000-$30,000 deal that, put the food on the table? What was the thing that got your blood rushing as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, for me, it was whatever was the success uh, of the milestone. Every time I've had a new opportunity, I feel like maybe I took a step down in order to move along, but the opportunity and the horizon and the ceiling was much greater in the new thing than it had been in the previous thing. So if I was selling timeshare, the best I could do was my own effort, create a sale, whatever was the commission rate, until the resort decided to mess with it. When I was in training and development, maybe I took an income step down in order to have a much grander opportunity for a piece of everybody else's action. That's really where I got the first taste of that. Um, when we started selling franchises for mycity.com, and I asked somebody for a franchise territory for an internet thing where they were still talking about the on-ramp to the information superhighway. This was new terms,
Wow.
and everybody wanted to be the toll booth. So if you could conceive um, ones and zeros, internet, digital.
Mhm.
I mean, this is long before NFTs or any of these kinds of things were even a dream, let alone mainstream. When we started selling memberships to the DirectBuy Club in Buffalo, a partner of mine, we used to bet each other lobster dinners. I can have more than you this week, this month,
Love
whatever.
that. That's cool.
You've one time the lobster wasn't enough. It turned into scotch. The next time it turned into a Rolex. And I'm happy to say I never lost. Um, but when the opportunity came to open a location close to home, it meant being closer to family. So priorities change, and the things that you want, that purpose, that drive, changes along the way. It gives you a different motivation. And that's, I think, where I got together today with my wife as a business partner on Mind Games and creating a children's enrichment program, which is her wheelhouse, and coupling that with business success, growth, franchising, my wheelhouse, and pushing to the next level.
That's amazing. That's really exciting. Now, how does she feel about having to deal with you on the day to day with work?
She
Because
has her moments, and I'm sure it's because I have my moments, but the there's tensions, there's challenges, there's trials and tribulations, as you said. The ladder to whatever you're going to build, your business, your legacy, the ladder isn't a straight line. If you're climbing up onto your roof to hang your Christmas lights, or you got to clean the gutters or whatever, it's one step, one step, one step, one step. That's not realistic. Sometimes life throws you curveballs. This week's stock market has been a hot mess. And yet there are some things that are not a hot mess. So the trick, I think, is to think about it like lily pads and take those ginger steps from one spot to the next that may not always go up, but they may get you further along to where you want to go, um, and move forward that way. So if my wife, my partner, and I are having a struggle in a particular area, we try and isolate that as a silo, work on something else, and then come back to this when the time is right. She looks at the campaign in much the same way. She said, "Now you're going to do what? And put yourself out there how? And talk to all these people that you don't know?" I said, "Well, that's what I do anyway. So okay."
well,
And
you've had
that's a lot of fun.
you've had a lifetime of always be selling, right? Is learning how to deal with people, how to work with people, how to deal with diverging opinions, right? Because I can imagine franchisees and franchisors don't always get along, and they always don't agree with the same things, right? Just like employees, and
Hmm.
scaling a business isn't always easy. Shifting gears and talking about the council seat and running for that, what made you decide, I got all this business I'm doing, I'm building a franchise, my wife is telling me I'm running around and I'm not doing enough stuff because she's the boss lady and she's telling you better get it done, and you're having fun together, you're building this wonderful, again, and I admire it greatly because I think it's amazing. Just so everybody is well aware, if you can work with your spouse like that, that's a huge deal. I just hope everyone understands how lucky they are to have each other, because that's truly a blessing. But with that being said, she probably heard you're talking about jumping on the campaign trail, even though it just maybe the village council, Wellington. It's not the governor's seat yet, but it's something. What did she think, and what made you decide to do this?
Well, this is always something I've wanted to do, and it's funny because I've had bookkeepers in the past, or salespeople in the past, or hourly employees in the past, and I live with passion. I move with a purpose, and along the way, those folks said, You'd be good in public office. Okay." You hear that enough times, maybe it starts to go in, and you start to think, I should run for public office. And long before that happened, I said, maybe it's time to get a little seasoning first. So let's find out what these boards and committees are. I live local. We love Wellington, where we live. We moved here in 2003. We built a home, beautiful home. Started 3 kids through school there, all public school, had a great time with that. And I got involved because I'd built out businesses, there were certain synergies with how things work. I got involved in the Planning Zoning Advisory Board for the Village of Wellington, becoming the chairman. That was 4 years. And then they said, you should rotate out and do something different. I said, okay. They said, how do you feel about Parks and Rec? I said, I coach kids basketball. I love the parks. I love the recreation. Let's do that. So I got involved and became ultimately vice chairman. I'm still doing that, vice chairman of the Parks and Rec Board. Somebody tapped me along the way and they said, this thing for the school board's coming up. They're going to open some new schools and we need some people on the advisory boundary committee for the Palm Beach County School Board. And you have not only some sense about business and parameters, but you also have a lot of experience in around the schools. Said, okay. So we identified some boundaries for a school in Boca, and we identified some boundaries for a school in Arden, and we identified some boundaries for a school in Wellington, and wherever they are, Riviera Beach. I tried to apply logic to it. If there's 12 high schools in Palm Beach County, 15 high schools in Palm Beach County, you're going to open one more. There's got to be some overcrowding somewhere, and you really get one shot to rearrange all the kids. And unfortunately, some kids are going to move schools at some point. But there's a new high school opening down the road. We're going to load it up, and we want to make sure it's balanced. And there isn't a parameter for racial balance because that's discrimination. There isn't a parameter for socioeconomic. All the best you can do and use as a gauge is how many kids participate in free and subsidized meals. And that's because they qualified some way. So you can apply some common sense to the parameters. You want to try and have a consistent boundary rather than this weird jagged line just to include an area or just to exclude an area. So Levin, you've got some business sense. Let's apply business to some of these government things and let's make them happen. So I've been doing that since 2018, and we're about to start our next cycle. So it came time for me to realize that some of the village council members now are term limited, which I support term limits, and there are going to be some vacant seats. And I said, maybe it's time to go to the next step and step up. Whether it was Brian Tracy or Stephen Covey, they said, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. And Tony Robbins always said, step up. So for me, the next logical step from boards and committees for me was moving into an elected role in the Village of Wellington. So I went to file.
That's amazing. So you say you started that in 2018 is what I think I heard, right? Was getting
2018 was the I think the first board position was 2016 for PZAB, and I ran that for 4 years. Then 2018 I started with the advisory boundary committee for the school board, and in 2020 I transitioned from the PZAB to the Parks and Rec board, where I've been ever since. So 4.5, something like that. The timing, the how it goes in the calendar isn't always with a full calendar year. So you start in May, you go to April, something like that.
Got it. Yeah. So again, but you're and for people to understand, this is not new. So you running for this village seat is not something that's a new conversation, right? You're already somebody who's already involved tremendously with other opportunities within the area in Wellington, in the village already. So for you, this is just kind of in my mind, sounds like a natural progression to the next opportunity, right? Like any other business owner or business employee, stepping on to the next thing because you've learned a lot about what you've done. You've obviously cut your teeth in it, right? Figured it out, use your business sense to build great opportunities. And the village has been doing well the last couple of years, right? So I think the hope here is to see the village be successful and continue success and reduce its, and again, my ignorance a little bit to it, but reduce its overall development impact. I think that's been like the biggest thing or biggest topic of conversation I hear from the chamber events and all the meetings I've had is everybody coming to Wellington and wanting to build in Wellington. But you've been here.
Well, there are a number of different hot button issues, and we had some meetings on planning, zoning, advisory. But the first thing I did on PZAB, they said, we're going to rewrite the land use code. I said, boy, that sounds like fun.
It does sound like fun.
Oh my, oh my goodness! There's chapters and
Yeah.
chapters and chapters of what does a lake and how can you use a residential and what's a commercial and what is an EZOD and how does that impact where you can put multi-use. And I started by scratching my head. So before every meeting, the village would send you this giant package of material to review, and I digested as much as I could. And then I called up to the village planner. At that time, it was a fellow who named Bob Basehart, who's since passed away. And I scheduled time with Bob, and I said, Bob, I've got this big, thick book that you guys sent me. Help me understand the salient points. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Did I get this part right? And that's how I approached it every time. For Parks and Rec, I've been around the parks. I've gone to the groundbreakings. I've seen what's come before us. But some of the PZAB meetings, we had to one that we had to at 11 o'clock at night. You have to vote to continue the meeting another hour and then another hour. We went till 3 a.m. one time talking about
Wow.
K Park or talking about, and these are volunteer positions where the 7 board members on PZAB or the 7 board members on Parks and Rec volunteer their time and participate, and getting people that care, that have a passion for the success of the programs, for the success of the direction of the village of Wellington, is a unique thing. And one of the things that I'm very, very excited about in my campaign is I'm the only one that's got this depth and breadth of experience, this background. A few people have been on a board for a year or so, and that's great. But I really think that I've built relationships. I've got communication lines with the village manager, the assistant village manager, the engineer, the various different people that, as an elected official in the village of Wellington, you will dovetail with. The form of government that we have is a manager council relationship. The council sets policy, ordinance, and so forth, and the village manager and the team to super simplify it does it. If the council votes to mill and pave a road, the village manager goes and finds the guys with the shovels to
So,
oversimplify.
yeah, but it oversimplified, but it's so important that you work well together with the people, right? So that you have some
Hmm.
background that the person who would be filling these chairs, these seats, right? Because I think there's 2 seats that are open. I believe 2 and 3, I believe, are both open seats right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
you have to have background. You had to know these. I guess you don't have to know them, but knowing them gives you a leg up because you understand. Like you said, you're in the PZAB. You've been on top of all these other boards, the park, rec. Again, you've had these conversations, so these are not new. You've already been briefed on a lot of this over the last almost 10 years at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And not only the relationships with the people, like I said earlier, in business, you have a boss, even if you're the boss. And sometimes being the boss means you're the guy that goes and gets the broom, because you want your business to be presentable. And you pick, if that's not a colorful enough metaphor, I'm sure I can find others. But in business, it's no different than in relationships for good governance. These municipal elections are nonpartisan. But just as I've been frugal in business, I would be frugal with how we handle the village. Growth is inevitable. Listen, I built a house in Wellington in 2003. Nobody's suggesting they plow under it and put a strawberry field back. That's not reasonable. People want to come to Wellington. Now, we can manage our growth. We can monitor our growth. We can slow our growth. I believe the equestrian preserve is sacrosanct and not to be disturbed. Um, it needs to be an equestrian preserve. There's a current proposal floating right now to put a country club in the spot. Well, that's not an equestrian use. It doesn't fit. I'm not opposed to a country club. I'm opposed to a country club there because it's not consistent with the use. Want to change the use? That's a different conversation. But I tried to explain this to my wife the other night. You asked, how do we see some of these issues? And she said, well, what do you mean land use? And I said, well, we live in a house in a neighborhood that has an HOA, and we don't have a taco stand in our front yard. Can't put it there. It's not a restaurant use. It's a residential use. So whatever the use is for this particular parcel of land, that's what you get. Maybe you decide you want to have residential restaurant. Somebody's got to change the use in order to make a taco shop in my front yard.
Which has been so important to Wellington over these years. I mean, I've only been down here since 2019, pre-COVID, but the one thing I could say from the chamber meetings, the conversations that I've had with other the commissioner, I believe now she's now the mayor, Baxter, with other individuals who are running in different seats, that the one thing everyone says is they want to see the growth in Wellington. I don't think anybody wants to not see Wellington become more successful. It just comes down to making sure, like any other municipality, that the growth is done in a very well-maintained manner. I believe the last event we went to at the chamber where they had the WIF kickoff was about a week and a half ago, and they talked about $536 million comes into Wellington from all the winter sports. That's more than, I believe they said F1, more than the Super Bowl in its single day. That's right. A lot of money coming to Palm Beach County. And not to say that it's all about the money, but it's about jobs. It's about business stimulation. It's about growth and opportunity that's only created through the distribution of spending money and doing business together.
And what that's done over time is it's made Wellington, Florida, a destination internationally.
Oh, yeah.
I was at an appointment the other day, and coming into the lobby as a fella, and I have a cute bicycling outfit. He had a cute horsey outfit, and the boots and the pants and the whole bit. He says, "Pardon me, I hope," very heavy accent. "Pardon me, I hope you don't mind." I said, "I don't mind. I'm here for an appointment." He says, "Well, I'm just glad that at this place they'll see me whatever I'm wearing." I said, "Listen, we all go to Publix in the area. We go to wherever, and we see equestrians everywhere." I said, "What is it that you do?" I can't distinguish the difference between a jumping outfit and a dressage outfit and a polo outfit.
You've been here for a decade. What do you mean you can't?
I'm not an equestrian by nature. I can appreciate it, but it's not my wheelhouse.
I do dry cleaning.
So
I still can't figure it out.
There you go. So I asked him. I said, "Is your uniform, is your costume, is your outfit, is it distinctive for one or the other?" He says, "No, not really. But as it turns out, I'm a jumper. I work at a barn. I work at multiple barns. I have students. They have horses. They board them." I said, "So is it nice for you? Is this the place? Is Wellington the destination?" He says, "I have to tell you, I love the Wellington Equestrian Festival, global. I love everything that's happening here because it's in one spot. My winter is Wellington, Florida." I said, "What's your summer like?" He says, "Well, I go to New York, I go to Pennsylvania, I got to go to New Jersey, I got to go to wherever, all the different events, because there is no other spot like the Wellington Equestrian Festival. There is no other winter capital of the world for equestrian functions." And I now clearly understand the difference between jumping, dressage, polo, the impact to the economy and how that works. But that's the cornerstone of what initially appealed to my wife and I when we came here. The neighborhood feel, the quaint aspect, the wide pathways. Today we allow golf carts on them. That's state law. But how we work with it, and some of the signage and some of the permitting is municipally based. Controlling traffic is very, very important. Overflow. I met with the hospital the other day. I'm happy to say they endorsed me, and I'm excited about that. The Wellington Regional Medical Center employs 1,400 people. It is the #1 employer in the village of Wellington. And if we can maintain around it this center for medical business and complex and bring those folks in, I, as a business person, see the benefit of making a medical nucleus and tying all that background together with planning, zoning, with parks and rec, and seeing how that grows and the economic impact. And then people will skip over Wellington to go further west to have a longer drive. Okay. But their hospital is still going to be here. Their winter entertainment is going to be here. Their mall, their restaurants, the things that are going in at Lotus, the things that are coming into K Park, on 441. Put the busy stuff in the busy section and keep the cute stuff, the relaxed stuff, the neighborhood feel in the neighborhood section.
And I think it's amazing you're talking about the Wellington Regional. That's amazing. First of all, congratulations. That's awesome to hear that. But also, that's one of the I think unsound things people don't understand about Wellington is that it's not just the equestrian capital. We have a lot of hospitals now, especially in the immediate, we'll call it the greater Wellington area. We have a significant amount of medical centers, medical spas, hospitals, cancer research. There's so much going on in the medical field around here that it's becoming almost a second largest, what in like you said, employee is the largest apparently employment wise, but cash flow wise as well. And I think that's something that's really amazing for a town that is only so big. Again, now,
Yeah, the village of Wellington is 60 some thousand residents. It's fairly well landlocked with other municipalities. You mentioned Palm Beach County Commissioner, who's now Mayor Sarah Baxter. We're not making any new land. And there's another community to the east of us, Lake Worth Beach. There's another community to the north of us, south of us, and so forth. There's no real plan for the village of Wellington to go annex a big chunk of something else. So whatever we have is either going to come in redevelopment of existing spaces, or manage controlled growth of current spaces. The farms are the horse farms are great. The stables are great. I don't find any need to pull anything out of the equestrian overlay district in order to make change there. There's plenty of other opportunities now. I'm not the developer, and I think sometimes the thing that people miss is that if a developer owns land, or you own land, you can decide what you want to do with it, as long as it fits the use. Go back to my taco shop example. I can plant roses in my yard. I can plant tulips in my yard. Some things will survive better than others. Some things require a cold season in order to germinate. I can't go open a taco shop in my front yard. That's not a permitted use. But as long as I own my house, I could put in a pool. I can apply for the permits, and if they don't like the application, then those that review it can suggest changes, and I can do them or not. But that's how it works as a landowner. There are a lot of plans and fears when the buzz is that a particular builder is going to buy a bunch of horse farms and wants to turn it into a big tract land, big tract development, a neighborhood development. And unfortunately, that kind of dense residential isn't consistent with the land use where they're contracting for the land.
yeah.
As far as I know, they haven't closed on any of those deals. So,
And it's a lot of money. I mean, that's the one thing most people don't
lot of
understand
money.
with Palm Beach County is that essentially from West Palm, we'll call it Palm Beach Island, we'll call it, all the way
Mhm.
till you get to Arden, there is a lot of homes, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things going on. There are some scattered lots, a little bit of land left. There isn't a significant. And then till you get into the middle of our county, right, where we have sugar cane and crops. And again, people don't understand what it takes to have to underpin and remove all that topsoil out of there to build anything, which again, Palm Beach County economics, we're so vastly different. We're like a melting pot of equestrian, hospitals, and agriculture is a massive part of our how we fund the county. You're not building anything there, and there's no more
No.
space to do it. And the amount of money it would cost to purchase the land, just so listeners, understand, because as you know, well, I spent a decade in home building. It is so expensive. I believe we're at $250,000 an acre in Loxahatchee alone. Never mind in Wellington, which I think is kissing the $1 million mark at this point. I'm sure somebody like Lily Cho could probably correct my numbers there, but with LPT. But again, we're so heavy, densely already populated. The amount of money it would cost to purchase that amount of land and the money it would take to actually eke anything out of it, it makes no sense. It doesn't make sense for
The
these
first,
developers to
the,
do
the
this.
first thing the developer has to do is come up with a plan. I own this parcel of land. What do I think I want to do with it? I want to build houses. I want to build a strip center. I want to build a restaurant. Okay. Once your plan is done, you need a drawing. You need architects. You need traffic plans. You need
Civil,
to present all this as long as you want, before you put your first shovel in the ground. Once the shovel goes in the ground, the first thing that happens is the site improvements, all the underground stuff, the FPL. I was visiting with the government liaison the other day from FPL, and he says the strategy is for FPL to take all the power lines and bury them. There's a 10-year plan to put them all underground, so we won't be subject to power loss in the event of a hurricane in the future. Right now, they go out and they replace when there's an outage. But those site preps, sewage, plumbing, water coming in, the village of Wellington is fortunate enough to produce the clean water and manage the sewage. We have an abundance of that here, and we sell it to other neighboring communities. But I don't know that without experience on some of these boards and on some of these committees that the general public, let alone other candidates, are aware of what we have, what we do, what its reach is, what its scope is, and how best to work within the parameters of creating more better this rather than pie in the sky. I don't want that guy to build next to me.
Yeah, it's so much more intricate than that, and it does take, like you said, a little bit of nuance to understand that, and to really understand the difference of what Wellington is trying to be. And I'm excited to see your opportunity to go after it. I'm excited to see when is the election day, so the viewers know, those who are in Wellington.
So the Village of Wellington is a municipal election that happens on March 10th, 2026. A couple weeks in advance of that, the supervisor of election opens polling places for early voting. Go vote. A few weeks before that, they open the request for mail-in ballots. You could request it now, won't help. But the mail-in ballots will start being requested in early January. That's changed as far as how that happens. So if you're accustomed to having your mail-in ballot just show up at your house, take some homework and find out how to get your ballot. There's a good chance that my social media will be promoting how to get your mail-in ballot, how to show up, how to be involved. And if nothing else, that's what I would say is no different than in business. Be involved. Find a way to get involved. Either get more knowledge, listen to the candidate forum, listen to a village briefing. The village puts out a podcast. It's something that Rudy might do. Might impact you. At one point, people didn't go to the hospital in Wellington; they went east, and whether it was JFK area or downtown. But now they're finding that the Village of Wellington, the Wellington Regional Medical Center, has a lot of specialties and accreditations that aren't in some of these other areas, and so people are coming here when particular severe medical crises occur. God willing, you don't have one. But knowing where to go, having information, being informed, having access, that served me well in business, that served me well volunteering on committees, and I expect it'll serve me well in my campaign. We'll see.
I believe it will. Now, Stephen, how can they follow you? I'm sure you have some social media handles or something like that. So from your campaign standpoint, just because we're on that topic, what's the best way for people to follow you or like or subscribe?
Easiest way is votelevin.com. We tried to make that simple, easy to remember. Steven Levin, votelevin.com. And from the candidate page where there's all my platforms and things like this for education and traffic and making sure the PBSO substation gets built as planned, making sure that we have good cell towers in our village. All these things are municipal. How many times have you said, which carrier do you have? No, I live over here. My carrier's better. Well, they should all be the same.
Yeah.
At the very least, we should have great cell towers. Okay, so those that have contracted, those that have contracts in the village to produce that, do it. Or let's find a better vendor. Yeah. And some of those things I think people don't think about are top of mind for me. They're on my platform. And from the bottom, they can really easily link to my social media. Yeah, the handle's some long, weird, cryptic Facebook thing or Instagram thing, but votelevin.com, find the socials at the bottom. Easy peasy.
Perfect. And then for Mind Games, how can they find information more about that? Obviously, in their schools, if their children are going through, Palm Beach County, Broward County, they can find out more information there. But if they're just listeners here looking to get involved with that in any way,
sure.
How could they get involved?
Mindgamesandbeyond.com. Is the website, mindgamesandbeyond.com. We have a ton of pictures that we take during classes and videos. So our social media shows a lot of kids playing games and this kind of thing. We don't do a lot of advertising in social media. Hey, sign up. We do a lot of direct messaging to existing parents, people that have been involved. You mentioned Lily Cho earlier. She's a Mind Games mommy. We have lots of those folks. But the flyers are out right now for the next session. Sign up. Happy Thanksgiving. Right after Thanksgiving, we start our next session. And there's another session after that. And then there's summer. And it's an endless cycle of being prepared and getting ready for the next one. And we love doing it. The kids are great. There's a good amount of classroom management that goes into 20 kids in a room screaming, playing games, hooting and hollering when they get it right.
I can only imagine.
We have good awards we give them when they follow the rules and they play fairly and they engage in good sportsmanship. I'm a big fan of rewarding the win, which comes from business, rather than rewarding the participation. I'm a big fan of conservative, thoughtful approach to business, good governance. So
I love it. I think that's perfect. I appreciate that. And we always have one question we save for the end to ask I know this is the tough one. And I tell everybody every time, this is not something I told them beforehand. It's the toughest question of the night. Terribly hard before the weekend. If you could ask one person, dead or alive, doesn't matter, one question, who would that person be, and what would that question be they would ask them?
ooh, if I could ask one person, dead or alive, a question, what would it be? That's a tough one. I've as my favorite coach or mentor. I've had a lot of coaches and mentors along the way. For a minute, I worked for a company called Computer City. It was a division of Tandy Radio Shack, both of which are gone. And the fella at the end, when I got my first business card, it said Steven Levin TP, and I said TP. He says top performer. I said, who knows that? He says, well, you do.
Yeah.
And now it's part of your mindset. So for me, I've always followed mentors and coaches, and I think that I would probably sit down with Tony Robbins and find ways to craft the right mindset and make sure that you could do a checkup from the neck up and make sure that you're consistently applying your best effort in whatever it is. I do a lot of cycling. I don't want to sit down with Lance or George Hincapie or any of these guys. I ride distance. This is the physique of an endurance athlete. But when I go for a 100-mile ride and I'm out with other people, I take a Sherpa approach. I make sure that if they're struggling, that we stop, that they remember to hydrate, that they find all the good tips along the way. So if I was going to ask one person one thing, I'd probably want to sit with Tony Robbins and find out, how do you consistently apply good good mental food? How do you make sure that you are always going to step up, that you're always going to do good things, that you're always going to apply effort? And then I go forth and do great things.
And he does some amazing things and has done some amazing things. So I definitely say it's a great person. I don't think I've had that one yet. So that's a good one. I appreciate that. Well, hey, Steven, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure. I'm excited to see what March brings around for us. I'm excited to see Mind Games grow as well. Anything last for our viewers?
No, I usually end a meeting or a sales training with just that, bearing all that information in mind. Let's go forth and do great things.
I love it. Well, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it.